There are places in this world that remember things people would rather forget. Dunmara Point is one of them. Jutting out from the northern coastline like a broken finger pointing toward open sea, the lighthouse at Dunmara has stood for over a century, weathered, salt-crusted, and utterly alone. Most lighthouses are symbols of safety, beacons of hope cutting through darkness for sailors who have lost their way. But Dunmara was different. Locals never spoke of it with comfort. They spoke of it the way people speak of old wounds, briefly, quietly, and never without looking away. In September of 1973, lighthouse keeper Edmund Hale vanished without a trace. No boat. No body. No explanation. And then, exactly 50 years later, in September of 2023, his replacement, a man named Thomas Wick, disappeared on the very same night. Same fog rolling in from the Atlantic. Same silence on the radio. And carved into the stone floor of the watch room, the same single word both men had left behind. One word. Beneath. Kara Voss was not the kind of journalist who chased celebrity scandals or political gossip. She chased the stories people buried. And when she read about Thomas Wick, about the impossible coincidence of two men vanishing from the same place 50 years apart, something cold settled in her chest and refused to leave. She drove to Dunmara Point alone, arriving at dusk with a recorder, a flashlight, and the kind of stubborn curiosity that had gotten her into trouble more than once. The lighthouse had been sealed by local authorities pending investigation, but the padlock on the side door was rusted nearly through. Inside, the air was dense and damp, carrying the smell of salt and something older, something almost organic, like deep ocean mud. She found the word on her first sweep of the watch room. Scratched deep into the stone with what must have been tremendous force. Not panicked. Deliberate. The letters were careful, almost elegant. Beneath. She photographed it. Then she sat down on the cold floor and stared at it for a long time, because something about the depth of those cuts told her it had not been written in fear. It had been written as a warning. Behind a false panel in the keeper's quarters, hidden so well that investigators in 1973 had never found it, Kara discovered a stack of weathered logbooks. Edmund Hale's handwriting filled every page. For the first months of his posting, the entries were routine. Weather reports. Shipping observations. Maintenance notes. But somewhere in the spring of 1973, something changed. The handwriting grew tighter. The entries shorter. He began writing about a sound. Not from the sea above. From beneath it. A rhythmic, low-frequency pulse that he could feel more than hear, vibrating up through the lighthouse foundation, through the rock, through the soles of his boots. He described it as almost musical. Almost deliberate. He wrote that he had tried to record it with the equipment available to him and that the recordings had come back blank every time. He wrote that he had begun responding to it, flashing the lighthouse beam in patterns that matched the rhythm coming from below. And then, just 3 entries before his disappearance, a single sentence that made Kara's breath catch in her throat. He wrote, "It answered me back." The blueprints Kara had pulled from county archives showed a lighthouse with 3 levels. Standard construction. Nothing unusual. But standing in the keeper's quarters, she counted 4. There was a hatch in the floor beneath the iron stove, sealed with marine-grade bolts that had been installed long after the lighthouse was originally built. It took her 40 minutes with a wrench from the maintenance cupboard to pull it open. Below was a narrow staircase carved directly into the rock, descending into absolute darkness. At the bottom, she found a room. Small, circular, cut from raw stone. And inside it, equipment she could not immediately identify, arrays of receivers and transmission panels, clearly military in design, clearly decades old, but maintained. Cleaned. Used recently. On the central table, 2 sets of notes sat side by side in different handwriting. One set was Edmund Hale's. The other was Thomas Wick's. They had both been down here. They had both been using this equipment. And pinned to the stone wall above the table, a maritime chart with a location circled in red ink approximately 11 miles offshore, directly above the deepest trench in the Dunmara Basin. She did not mean to activate it. She was simply examining the transmission array, trying to understand the frequency it had been tuned to, when her elbow caught the power switch. The equipment hummed to life. Dials moved. Lights blinked. And then from the speakers, a sound. Low. Rhythmic. Rising and falling with an almost tidal patience. She recognized it immediately from Hale's descriptions. This was the signal from below. Except something was different now. The rhythm was faster than Hale had described. More urgent. And as she stood there frozen in the glow of the equipment, the rhythm changed. It responded to the sound of her breathing. She was not imagining it. She held her breath. The signal slowed. She exhaled. It quickened. Whatever was generating that signal 11 miles offshore and thousands of feet below the ocean's surface was not a geological phenomenon. It was not a mechanical anomaly from a sunken vessel. It was aware. And the notes on the table, Wick's final entries, told her something that made every instinct in her body scream to run. He had written, "It is not down there anymore. It is moving. It has been moving for weeks. And tonight it reaches the shelf." Tucked beneath the stack of logbooks, sealed inside a wax paper envelope stamped with a government crest she did not recognize, was a document dated 1921. A founding directive for the Dunmara Point station. And as Kara read it, the entire architecture of the mystery shifted. The lighthouse had never been built to guide ships. The maritime charts, the shipping records, the publicly available history, all of it was fabricated. Dunmara Point Station had been constructed as a containment beacon. The light was not a signal to sailors. It was a suppression frequency. A low-wavelength electromagnetic pulse, cycling with every rotation of the beam, designed to keep something in the trench below in a state of dormancy. The keepers were not lighthouse keepers. They were wardens. Stationed there to maintain the beacon, to monitor the signal from below, and above all else, never to respond to it. Edmund Hale had responded. Thomas Wick had responded. And whatever lived in the deep dark water below the Dunmara Basin had heard them both. The directive ended with a single line of instruction written in red: "If contact is made and the subject begins ascending, do not flee the lighthouse. Extinguish the beam. The frequency must not stop." Kara climbed out of that hidden room and she ran. She ran back up through the keeper's quarters, back up through the watchroom, and she found the main lighthouse controls and she switched the beam back on with shaking hands. The rotation resumed. The low hum of the suppression frequency filled the tower. And outside, the sea, which had been churning violently as she worked, slowly, impossibly slowly, began to calm. She published her story 3 weeks later. The logbooks. The hidden room. The government document. The signal. Most readers called it elaborate fiction. A few called it the most important piece of investigative journalism of the decade. The government issued no comment. Within 2 months, Dunmara Point was quietly transferred to a private conservation trust, a trust that, when Kara investigated, had no verifiable founders, no public records, and no listed staff. But the lighthouse was reactivated. The beam turns every night now. Someone is maintaining it. Someone is keeping watch. And deep beneath the waters of the Dunmara Basin, the signal from below has gone quiet again. For now. The lighthouse keeps its light burning. And whatever is down there keeps its patience. Some doors, it seems, were never meant to be opened. They were only meant to be kept closed.